Factoring trinomials 2.3. Okay, a trinomial is the result when you multiply two binomials together. Okay, you should remember this when we just multiplied two binomials together last week. So what we do here is we have to figure out how to get those two binomials out. There's many different ways to do this. Okay, so if you have ways that work for you and you already know them, please use them. I'll probably refer to them in class. But what we want to do is get a process that you can do for any trinomial, not just this kind or the other kind. Okay, so if you remember, factoring is the opposite. I don't even know how else to say it, is the opposite of multiplying. So we want to unmultiply. So what we do is remember that these two terms here, when you multiply them together, should give you x squared. So the only way we can get x squared is x times x. X squared times 1 wouldn't work. Okay? So then how we figure out this last number, remember, x times x is x squared. So I'm just kind of multiplying out as we go so you can kind of see where these numbers come from. We want to get an 8 down here. So we have to find a number that goes here and here. When you multiply them together, they go 8. They are 8. So this kind of thing that you're going to want to do when we're factoring trinomials, you're going to want to use a pencil with an eraser nearby. Okay, so what are the factors of 8? And when we say factors, I'm not going to write out all the factors. I want two numbers. This is one number, this is two numbers. I want two numbers that when you multiply them together, give you 8. All right, so 1 and 8, and 2 and 4. That's it. So we have to pick those pairs to put in these spots, here and here. So I always like to pick the ones that are closest together. 1 and 8 are far apart, so let's just pick, just to start. This is simply a process, okay? And it's called guess and check. We're using what's called the guess and check method. There's many other methods out there, but this one works too. So here we go. So we look at this, and when I say, if I put a 2 here and a 4 here, could I ever get a negative 6 right here? Okay, we'll worry about the signs in a minute. So we'll do that in a second. So if I multiply 2 times x, I get 2x. X times 4, I get 4x. If I add these two together, I get 6. Well, if I want a negative 6, then they would both have to be negative. Okay? In order for this guy to be negative, this would have to be negative. So this is like a puzzle to figure out signs and things like that. Now, your final check is to make sure that if I multiply this times this, I get positive 8, because this is a positive 8. So negative 2 times negative 4 is a positive 8. That works. So I know my first binomial is this one, and my second binomial is this one. Yes, there are shortcuts. Please use them, but this works every single time you do one of these problems. So here we go. There we go. So this is a binomial times a binomial. And my check and my erasing, okay, so this is my guess part. If you want to say, this is the guess and check method. This is the guess part, and this is the check part. So I guess. I want x, so we'll put x and x there. All right, and now my guess also, I need to figure out these two numbers. So remember, to figure out these two numbers, I have to figure out 30. Two numbers that multiply to 30. So let's break it down. 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 4 times nothing, 5 times 6. So those are all my possibilities. And this one you're going to see erasing. Okay, because I like to start, again, as you get going through this, you may be able to figure out, eliminate some of these as you go, saying, oh no, that's definitely not going to be the answer, which it isn't, but we'll do it. We're going to guess first. So my guess, I always like to pick the two numbers that are closest together, 5 and 6. So my check is here. So 5x, 5x, 6. Multiply them together. Oop. And 30. So this gives you 30, this gives you x squared, and this should always be 30 and x squared. Those should never change because that's how we picked the numbers. But these two, when I multiply these two together, I add these two together, I get an 11. If I subtract them, I get a 1, or negative, whatever. I don't think I could ever combine these two numbers in any way with any signs to give me 13. So that's not right. Okay, so I need to erase, but unfortunately, it won't let me erase. All right, I got rid of them, but it's a bit of a pain. Okay, so 5 and 6 don't work. 5 and 6 don't work, so then we can try 3 and 10. So we put a 3 here and a 10 here, and then we check. x3, x10. If they seem to work, then we try the signs, okay? So that's just how, it's just a process, just having some fun here with some puzzles. Okay, so if I add 3x and 10x, I get positive 13. Awesome. So it seems like a good thing for us, because that is a positive 13. All right, let's see if it works, though. The final check that you always have to do is make sure the two numbers multiplied together give you the correct thing. And in this case, this is supposed to be a negative 30. Okay, that's what we need. So what that means is one of these two has to be negative, because you can't have both of them be negative because that would be a positive. So if one of them was a negative, I would get, when I add these two together, I would get positive 7 or negative 7. So this doesn't work. The signs do have to be different. So let's finally try 2 and 15. So let's try those two. Let me see, can I erase? No. Okay, finally, 2 and 15. So if we try those two numbers, okay, we get x squared, 2x, 15x, 30x. I mean, just 30. Remember that 30 does have to be negative, so somehow we have to make that negative. Now we do that by multiplying it by a negative. So what we need is we need our answer, these two added together. These two added together has to be a positive 13. So that means the 15 is positive and the 2 has to be negative. So we just found the negative that we needed. So it's x minus 2 and x plus 15, because these all work out. So the check works. Alrighty, let's hope this works. Oh, there we go. So this gets a little bit more interesting when you start putting a number in front. After this one, I am going to end the video here and do the rest tonight. So we'll see how that goes. So here we need two numbers, two binomials that multiply together to give me 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. So two things multiplying together give me 2x, would be, say, 2x and x. Two things that multiply together to give me 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. I like to start with 2 and 3. I just do. And I'm actually going to put my 3 here and my 2 there, because if the 2's were together here, there would be a GCF, and there isn't one. So that's just a little bit of strategy, and we check. So the check involves multiplying it back out. So 2x squared, 4x, 3x, and 6. Okay, it does have to be a positive 6, so that's good. 2 times 3 is a positive 6. And now these two guys have to add to a positive 7. Look, they already do, 4x and 3x. So their signs are good. Positive, positive. Done. Okay, so we're going to practice this tomorrow. And the next day we'll have a little bit more complicated ones and just practice more. Have a good day. All right, number 4. So we're just going to do a little practice. You had a little practice today in class, so hopefully this isn't as trying as it was yesterday, I guess. So two things that multiplied together to give you 2x squared, 2x and x, really the only options. Two things that multiply to give you 10, 1 and 10, 2 and 5. So again, I love starting with the 2 and the 5, and I wouldn't put a 2 with this 2 right here because there would be a GCF in the problem. So I'm going to put a 5 and a 2 and just see if that works. So we have to check our signs and all that good stuff. So we put a 2x and a 5, x and a 2. So remember, this is our guess, and this is our check. So this is 2x squared, 5x, 4x squared, just 4x, excuse me, and 10. So 2x squared and 10 match. They're both positive. That's great. But when I add 5x and 4x, I get a positive 9, not negative 9. So what I need to do is both of these have to be negative. Remember, when you're combining like terms, two negatives, you add the numbers and keep the signs. So this would give me negative 9. These two added together would give me negative 9. Good. So that means that this 5 would have to be negative. So remember, take the negative, bring it up, take this negative, put it over here. You can't put them on the x's. It just doesn't work out that way. And if the final check here, remember the final check is always multiply these two together to make sure you're still getting that positive 10. So negative 5 and negative 2 multiplied together is a positive 10. Negative times a negative is a positive. So we have our answers. Answer. Done. And you know you're right because you've multiplied it here in the check. Okay, this gets a little interesting because we're raising the exponents, but there's a simple way to fix that, or a simple way not to be confused by it. You could use substitution, but that tends to confuse me a little bit more than it has to. So what I can tell you is the number, or the term that goes here always has the exponent on this term. Okay, so if you take a look at the worksheet here, this is x. Whoop, excuse me. This is x here, so these two are both x. Again, this is x here, so these two are both x. Always, this variable here always matches the term there in a trinomial. Okay, this only works in trinomials. So this is a squared here, so you know that the a in the beginning here is going to be a squared. Now a to the 4th, there's no, it's 1 a to the 4th, so I don't need to put numbers there. Okay, so then we have to look at the 24 here. So 24, two things that multiply to 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Okay, I like to, again, put them close together. Always pick the closest one, so I'm going to pick 4 and 6. That's if eventually you should be able, the more that you do, you should be able to pick out the right answer eventually. But we do our check, so that was the guess. A squared, 4 and 6. Okay, 4a squared, 6a squared, and 24. Okay, so we notice that when I add these two together, I get 10. Well, that's not a 2. But what we do notice is this 24 is negative. It does have to be negative, so you know that one of them has to be negative for this to work. A negative times a positive is your negative. So what you do is you say, well, I subtract the two. So when this guy is negative up here, you're going to subtract the numbers, not add them. Or think about you're going to add the opposite of one of them. So if I want positive 2 to be my answer, that means the 6, the bigger one, has to be positive, and the smaller one is negative. Okay, so let's see if this works. Again, this is our check. We're kind of working out the problem here. If I have a negative 4 plus 6, that is a positive 2, and then a 4, this one would be a negative 4. Remember, take the sign and bring it up. This is a positive 6, and when we multiply those together, I get a negative 24. Yep, that works. So these are our signs, negative and positive. Done. So then what you would have to do, these are all technically factoring completely problems. Always, always. This is actually the difference of two squares. So I'm going to switch colors and rewrite this down here. So it's a squared minus 4, a squared plus 6. This can't be factored, so that just gets brought down. But this one can, it is dots. Remember, take the square root and create two conjugates. So this is the final answer for that problem. And over here, lastly, so hopefully you've kind of figured out if there is no number in front here, the trick, I don't know if I said it in class or not, but the two numbers always have to multiply to this guy and add or combine to this one. We call this the AM method. So as a quick trick, I guess you could call it, remember this is b to the 4th, so each one of these has a 4 on it. We figure out our factors of 28. So 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. Okay, you look at them. The two things have to multiply to 28 and add to 3. So if it's negative 28 here, you know you're going to be subtracting. Remember I said that already, you're going to be subtracting. So if I made this a negative 7, these two multiplied together would be negative 28, and when you add them together you get a negative 3, which is what we need here. So negative 7 and positive 4. So that's my guess. When there isn't a number in front here, you can guess like that every time. Okay, so it just makes it just a little quicker, possibly. So this is b to the 8th, 4b4, negative 7b to the 4th, and then negative 28. So does all this work out? B to the 8th, yeah, negative 28, yeah, these two added together, negative 7 and a positive 4 is a negative 3. So you continue on just like we did in the last problem, and you say, can I factor any one of these again? So this is a perfect square. B to the 4ths are perfect squares. 4 is a perfect square, so this looks good so far, but unfortunately this is a plus sign. So that's a plus. It's not difference of two squares, so this can't be factored. And 7 is not a perfect square, so this cannot be factored again. That is the final answer.